right, so we've got some responses here. All right. About 65% of you responding here. Okay, so we'll leave this up for just another minute or so. Okay. 85%. Okay. Okay, I think that we have a pretty good response here. And we have quite a few of you, over half of you, that don't know anything but you want to learn. And that is an excellent place for us to be at this moment, because that's exactly what I'm going to share with you this afternoon. Again, welcome. My name is Deanne Berryhill. I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning there, but let's get started then. Okay.
Okay, so just close the poll.
Okay, so according to studies on adult readers, evidence-based reading instruction is the most effective approach to teaching reading. It provides teachers with the tools to deliver effective instruction. It's not a curriculum or a set of materials. Evidence-based practices use research-based data, as well as results identified through a consensus among expert practitioners who monitor outcomes. While reading is the most basic of skills, teaching reading is a complex process that is often misunderstood. EBRI lays out effective evidence-based assessment and instructional practices. Practices include assessments in each of the 4 components of reading: alphabetics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Lessons based on those assessments, direct explicit instruction, effective instructional strategies and techniques, as well as regular monitoring of student progress throughout the created desired outcomes that you can see on the slide. Okay. Where you have improved student reading skills, student retention, increased number of students completing or transitioning, increased teacher knowledge of reading instruction, as well as increased teacher skills to meet those reading needs. There's a need for change, however. EBRI provides a model to make recommended changes to effectively meet student needs. These changes include both changes in the classroom and at the school site, hence the need to approach EBRI implementation as a school team. This approach differs from traditional training or in-services or workshops you may have previously attended. The changes are not a layering over or adding on to what is currently being done. These recommended changes ask you to evaluate what you are doing now and consider making fundamental shifts in your thinking about how you are teaching reading. So to get going with this conversation, I want to set you up in breakout rooms, and I want you to discuss your definitions of reading. Try to come to a consensus for the group and either appoint someone or have someone volunteer to report out the group's definition. And we can report in 2 ways. We can either do it verbally or in the chat box. We'll have about 3 to 4 people per room, and we'll do this for about 5 minutes. And so we will go to breakout rooms. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we can either have someone from the group to share your response as to what reading is, or you can actually write in the chat box. So if you want to go ahead and do that at this time, that would be great. We can share some definitions for reading.
This is Raquel Johnson,
Yeah.
and our group decided that reading was being able to recognize and interpret symbols in a way that you can understand and comprehend what you recognize, and so that it becomes meaningful.
Okay. Well said. Well said. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share.
Okay.
Yes. So we were saying that reading is a way of communicating with each other. So you have word recognition and comprehension. It's a way to also help improve your writing, which furthers your own reading skills. We said a few other things. That's what I remember from our discussion.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. We also have the process of decoding letters and words in order to comprehend what's written. Includes vocabulary, inferencing, accuracy, and fluency. Okay, very good points. Decoding, comprehension, vocabulary development, fluency, those are all very important aspects of the reading process. I'd like you to think for a moment in your breakout room, what did you learn? What did you not include in your definition that somebody else may have mentioned? The ideas of symbols is important because communication via written communication means is evolving, such as, well, yeah, text messages, absolutely, as well as comprehension of text. Reading is a complex, it's a complex process of deriving meaning from print that requires the following: an understanding of how speech sounds are related to print, decoding, as you mentioned, fluency is essential, vocabulary, background knowledge, active comprehension strategies, as well as a motivation to read. Not much, really, right? So how does a teacher do all of this? EBRI offers solutions. To reiterate, according to studies on adult readers, evidence-based reading instruction is the most effective approach to teaching reading. It provides teachers with the tools to deliver effective instruction. It's not a curriculum. It's not a set of materials. It's evidence-based practices use research-based data as well as results identified through a consensus among expert practitioners who monitor outcomes. So EBRI refers to a set of practices that have been shown to be successful to help learners improve their reading skills. While reading is the most basic of skills, teaching reading is a complex process that is often misunderstood. EBRI lays out effective evidence-based assessment and instructional practices. Practices include assessments in each of the four components of alphabetics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. And most of you touched on those in your definition of reading. It's also lessons based on those assessments, using direct explicit instruction, effective instructional strategies and techniques, and regular monitoring of student progress. It is not a curriculum. It is not a structured reading program. It is not a set of materials. This training focuses on learners who fall between the grade level equivalency of 4.0 and 8.9. It's interesting to note that this is the greatest number of ABE students that we serve. This graphic represents those components of reading: alphabetics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Let's take a look at each of these components in a little more detail. Alphabetics is phonemic awareness, which is the knowledge of basic sounds or phonemes of the spoken language. It's also sight word recognition, phonics or word analysis, letter-sound correspondence, connections between letters and sounds, and strategies. Alphabetics refers to the skills needed to decode and identify words. We think of these skills as lower and higher levels of alphabetic skills. Fluency is the ability to read accurately at an appropriate speed and with appropriate expression or prosody, using patterns and rhythm, stress, and intonation. Oral reading allows students to practice this fluency. Vocabulary refers to the knowledge of words and their meanings, including how and how often these words are used. And comprehension is the goal of all reading, to derive meaning from written language through interaction and involvement with the text. Comprehension is actually both a process and a product. It's an interaction with text, and it requires strategies such as asking questions using background knowledge, identifying and connecting ideas, summarizing, recognizing when something has not been understood, and doing something about it. Not only are alphabetics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension the four components of reading, but they are interrelated in the process and product of reading, both in print-based and meaning-based skills. Print-based skills refer to the ability to read words accurately and quickly. The components of alphabetics and fluency are categorized as print skills. Readers with good print skills can give their full attention to the meaning of a text. Meaning-based skills allow a reader to focus on the meaning of a text. Vocabulary and comprehension are categorized as meaning-based skills. It's interesting that ESL students often have stronger print-based skills, while native speakers often have stronger meaning-based skills. These components are not isolated skills. They also affect and interact with one another. Poor alphabetic skills can affect fluency. It's difficult for students to read fluently if words are not decoded or identified quickly or automatically. It can affect vocabulary. Students may not understand a word even if its meaning is known. It can affect comprehension. Focus on decoding leaves little attention for comprehension of text. Poor fluency skills can affect comprehension. If a text is read too slowly or too fast, a reader cannot remember what was read. Without fluency in alphabetics, learners spend more time decoding and reading individual words, and thus are unable to focus on the meaning. Poor vocabulary skills also affect alphabetics. If words are not known, it slows down word identification. It can affect fluency. It's difficult to read with meaning if the word is unknown. It can affect comprehension because ideas are not understood. Poor comprehension skills affect vocabulary. Fewer opportunities to learn and be exposed to new words. It can affect fluency as well. It's difficult to read in phrases or with appropriate expression. So you can see that these components do coexist. As educators, we know instruction begins with assessment for goals. And the goal of diagnostics is to determine learners' strengths, and by identifying the strengths and needs, teachers can design instruction. Identifying strengths is as important as identifying needs. Students and teachers need to know both to find out what the learner needs to work on and at what level. Instruction also begins with assessments to determine the levels. When we recognize that a student is at an instructional level, we know they will benefit from an instruction and practice at this level. But if they show mastery, then they're proficient and they don't need practice at this level. Using a reader profile can be advantageous for your assessments in developing an appropriate reading strategy for the learner. It takes practice to do assessments efficiently, but with time and practice, everyone can do them, whether they are initial, formative, or summative in nature. Let's think for a moment. Think about your classroom. How would information gathered from assessments help you better meet your students' needs? Think about that for a moment. And we'll use the chat box for responses. How would information gathered from your assessment help you? Okay, the data can drive the instruction, gives us background knowledge, direct instruction, targeting the student's weaknesses, targeted instruction. Okay, very good. Yes. Yeah. So you guys are on it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Those are all good responses. The following instructional approaches come from the research on effective teaching in general, as well as characteristics of effective instruction for students with learning disabilities. It's a good way to review these features of effective instruction and be familiar with the terminology and thinking. Let me share each of these features in more depth. Explicit instruction is when you make goals, lesson objectives, activities, and experiences clear. You make connections between the lesson activities and the broader skill goals. You address background knowledge, as you said, and prerequisite skills. You explain and model all aspects of the task. Strategy instruction is when you teach learning skills. You teach the tools, the principles, the rules, or multi-step processes to accomplish the learning task you established in your goal. You model and demonstrate. You prompt and cue learners to use the strategy. You then scaffold the instruction, which provides support for learning as needed, breaking it into steps, providing clues, reminders, or encouragement. And then, of course, you withdraw that support gradually as it becomes necessary. Intensive instruction or active engagement keeps a learner focused, active, and responding with plenty of time on task. Structures or segmented instruction break that information and skills into manageable parts. You teach the parts systematically and in sequence. Bring the parts together to refocus on the whole. In the reflection piece, it's an opportunity to reflect on the usefulness or value of new skills and knowledge. Usefulness refers to relevance, value of what students are learning in their goals, and not just whether or not the topic is interesting to the students. It's also an opportunity to have students think about their learning process, the metacognition piece, which gives ownership to their learning process. One of the key features of effective instruction is that it is explicit and direct, based on what McShane says. These are the steps that are recommended. The introduction is what learners are doing and why they are doing it. You connect instruction to the goals, both specific and broad reading comprehension goals as learner goals. When you model, you demonstrate the activity or strategy while the learners observe. And learners should never be asked to do an activity that has not been modeled for them. You break the skill or strategy down into parts. You model and practice each part in sequence. And then you introduce guided practice with feedback to make sure learners are using the appropriate level of instructional materials for their practice activities, as well as the strategies that you've introduced in the modeling. You scaffold the instruction such that the teacher and class do something together. Then students can work in small groups, and eventually they'll be independent with confidence. It provides learners with multiple opportunities to practice the skill or strategy. And as a teacher, you allow learners to remain at this stage until they are successfully using the skill or strategy with confidence, while monitoring constantly to modify the lesson or provide additional scaffolding, or even to reteach if necessary. You provide feedback, including necessary corrections. Eventually, students become independent. They demonstrate the skill or strategy on their own. They may apply the skill in another context or with another type of material, which fosters transference. And finally, you're continually monitoring throughout the steps. You do want to note the sequence of steps occurs over several class periods. It does not occur in one class setting. Just as learning to read is a complex process, so is teaching reading. For most of us, if we have had little or no training in teaching someone to read other than training how to use a set of materials, EBRI gives us a clear, comprehensive framework of principles and practices to work with. We don't have to guess what we are doing and why we are doing it. It is not a new flowchart or a program. It is a different way of thinking about how we teach reading. Not merely change in materials, but change in instructional design, program practices, and teacher behavior. We teach the reader, not the reading. So I would like to have us go into breakout rooms once again and talk about this. How might an emphasis on teaching the reader, not the reading, impact what you do in the classroom? Again, we'll set 5 minutes for this breakout room, 3 to 4 people per room, and then we'll use the chat as a method of response.
Okay, we are ready to go.
Back into the main room. Go ahead and put your responses in the chat box. Teaching the reader rather than the reading. How might that impact what you do in the classroom? Teaching the reader rather than the reading. Any thoughts on that?
Well, in our group, oh, are we?
Sure, verbal
sharing
is
verbally?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in our group, we were a little unclear about, I guess the overall message of this phrase. But there were a couple of takeaways. Maybe the idea that, a student maybe comes in with dyslexia, which is, something that they're bringing to the table that can't just be fixed with, one type of instruction. They're going to need a kind of a toolbox of strategies in order to be successful with reading. And so teaching the reader specifically in that case is helping them gather their own sort of personalized toolbox to continue.
I think you make a very good point. Yeah. Yeah. Teaching the reader, you're addressing the specific needs of the student, and you're teaching the whole person. Yeah, and you're providing them the tools that they need for their toolbox so that they can accomplish the task that you set in front of them. Yeah, well said, well said. Katie, right? Katie Jones? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we've got some other responses here. Motivate students to become lifelong learners. We teach the reader we're addressing student-specific needs as opposed to just context and text. Very much so. And we've got one more new message here. Let's take a look at that. Using motivational interviewing, meeting them at their level and helping them to progress. Definitely. Yeah. The value of pre-assessments to help put the focus on the needs. Yeah. Relevant. Relevance, I think, is a very important aspect of the teaching the reader as opposed to teaching the reading, because if they can have that connection, then they're going to be able to handle those tasks in a much better fashion. Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. You were very, very responsive on this. Get rid of that for a moment, and let's go ahead then. So teaching the reader, not the reading, is significant in a multitude of ways, as you just explained. Instructional planning is essential for the implementation of EBRI. And when we speak of instructional planning, we really want to focus on the sequenced and systematic instruction, which is one of the key EBRI practices. When you're planning sequential lessons, you want to create your lesson goal. For example, to have students summarize a passage. You want to break that goal down into multiple lesson segments, such as identifying the topic, identifying the main idea, distinguishing a supporting detail from a main idea. You want to present the lesson in segments over a period of time, creating an instructional routine. What do you do each day? And short lesson segments, breaking that lesson goal down into multiple lesson segments over a period of time. In order to implement EBRI, it's helpful to have what's called managed enrollment, which is a system of permitting learners to enter class at predetermined times. And what works best is if you have established term lengths, limited class size, student commitments, a syllabus for every class. But we do have to realize it will look different at each site. Managed enrollment is recommended for the following reasons. Students receive consistent, systematic, sequential instruction. There's no need to continually repeat instruction, and allows for students to make better progress. It fosters a stable classroom environment with minimal turbulence and interruptions. It rewards students who are persistent, and student retention increases. Because the beginning is the most important part of any work, according to Plato, when implementing EBRI, you need to consider your program, your instruction, and your resources. Your program considerations, you need to look at these items. Do you have managed enrollment? What does the leveling of your classes look like? How many skill levels do you have within one class? What is your class size? Do you have the support that you need to implement these things? And would it really be a school team effort of cooperation and communication? When you're looking at your instructional considerations, you need to look at the assessments you already have in place. What processes in instruction do you need to review, evaluate, and perhaps change completely? You have assessments in place. What does a syllabus look like? What does your class schedule look like? How do you orient students to your program? And can you actually phase in instruction? What materials do you already have? When you're looking at your instructional resources, since EBRI is not a materials-driven program, what considerations do you need to think about in order to have the resources available for program implementation? Do you have a variety of materials? If you do, take an inventory of what you have. Look at your materials, make sure they're grade level. Check online for a list of recommended materials as well. So in summary, when we look at the needs of ABE students, because reading is a complex process, we can use evidence-based reading instruction as a way to meet the needs of our students. It does so through addressing the 4 components of reading and focusing on what needs to change, as well as a cooperative plan to implement. So that's a brief summary of EBRI, and I'm going to ask after I show you the references. These are the references I use for the evidence-based information I shared. And I would like to ask if you have any questions about the presentation before I turn it over to Nancy, who's going to share some more information with you. And you can either verbally or state in chat, question in chat if you have a question. Anybody? So if I gave you the poll at this point, do you feel more comfortable? You can actually give me, you feel more comfortable finding out about EBRI, you can give me a thumbs up. If you use your little icon there, thumbs up that you maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Good, okay. All right, I've got 1 thumbs up there. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, and she's going to share with you a little more information.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have the opportunity to participate at no cost to the state. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Nancy Olson. I'm the state director for the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act program. So we here at the state oversee the funding, reporting, et cetera, for your programs. And we have the opportunity to participate in a program that has been around for 15 years or more. And it is a federal project. The last time that I was involved with it, the state that I was at paid about $35,000 to participate. But like I said, we have the opportunity now to do that at no cost to the state, except for staff time. So what is it? It is the
Okay,
evidence-based, sorry.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nancy.
That's okay. Can you flip back one? Oh, no, okay, you were in the right one. Okay. So what it is it's an ongoing professional development program that would include the opportunity to become a state trainer for those people participating and successfully completing the training. It is a pretty intensive training. And for the first time, it is going to be completely virtual in nature. There will be approximately 30 online modules that will take approximately 24 hours to complete. And then there will be team meetings and coaching and practice in the classroom. So those instructors participating would have to be teaching intermediate level students to be able to participate. The programs participating will have to have an administrator that is participating and able to make decisions about the program. It is a flipped classroom approach. And the coaching that takes place is invaluable. The one individual that I know of has been delivering the training nationally for a number of years, does a fantastic job with the training. So if you could go ahead and move to the next, thank you. It will be set to start in March and run through October. The weekly commitment, as I mentioned, it's about 24 hours of online modules, but in addition to that, there are team meetings, coaching, and classroom practice. We're required to have a state lead, and for our state, that lead will be Katie, right? Katie, I think you're my lead for STAR.
Me, Katie Naginski, or Katie Jones?
Katie Naginski.
Oh, sure.
I think so.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Our state lead is compliments of American Institutes for Research because of professional development contract. Thank goodness.
Perfect.
Like I said, every program that participates will have to have a program administrator and at least one teacher. And that teacher has to be delivering instruction to intermediate level readers. I can't stress how good this training is. It really takes the evidence-based reading instruction and breaks it down. And by the time you complete the training, you can go into your classroom and work with students in the most effective way possible for the reading instruction. No, there is not an associated cost. We will be able to provide stipends for instructors for time over and above their normal schedule. So there won't be an associated cost for the local program. Those instructors that are full-time instructors, the time that is in their normal schedule, we wouldn't have a stipend for that, but anything above that, we would have a stipend available. But you do have to have your administrator's participation. So if you are interested, please check with your program administrator. Right now, I have one program that has committed to participating. We're working on getting commitments from other programs. I have a follow-up meeting next week that will provide me with some specific deadlines and information that we have to collect, but I anticipate the deadline for committing to be a week from tomorrow. So it's fairly fast. We sent out the information to all the program directors a couple, 2-3 weeks ago, gave an introduction before that to let them know that it was coming up. And then once we got the more detailed information, shared that with the local program directors. So you can also email me for additional information. And I'll put my email in the chat, just in case you don't already have it. So again, we have to have the program administrator participate, because this approach does require, just like Deanne said, it requires that buy-in, and it requires some shifts in the way that classes are delivered right now for the specifically for the reading. And thank you. Somebody asked what does STAR stand for, and I think you're right. I think it's Student Achievement in Reading. It's been too long since I double checked that. My first introduction to STAR, yes, it is Student Achievement in Reading. My first introduction to STAR took place about 8 or 9 years ago. So it's a great program. Again, it's not a curriculum. It is an approach. It's a model of how to deliver evidence-based reading instruction. So, and we are right at 3 o'clock. So I will turn it back over to Katie for any questions.
And Deanne, do you mind advancing the slide one last time? Oh, I guess one more.
Oh, I missed one. Yeah, I missed one. This last slide was basically to tell you what you would get out of it.
Yeah.
You know, what's the advantage of participating in the STAR program?
Okay, thanks so much, Nancy, and thank you, Deanne, and thank you, Vicki, for all of your support. And thank all of you for attending. This was great. We are gonna throw an evaluation link into the chat, so if you have a couple minutes, we'd really appreciate any feedback. And thanks again for attending this afternoon. It was nice to have such a big group of y'all. It was nice to see so many of your faces.
Yeah.
It was very, very good participation. Thank you very much for your time.
And I want to echo that. Thank you.
Great. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you.